The conversation continues with Jimi Wanjigi, and also we are now joined by Ken Mijungu from KTN. Ken, mambo vipi?
Fiti.
Very good.
Away for 2 weeks, you displaced me. I was almost sitting comfortable. Then you just showed up.
Eric,
your leave should have been longer.
Don't let this man con you. He was sitting in a corner somewhere. He wasn't sitting where you're sitting.
And then he took off anyway.
Yes, he took off.
On the day we were ready to buy him, what do you call it? GK, GOK, 75,000. Happy birthday, belated, by the way.
G700. He would know about it.
G700.
705,000.
He would know about it.
Oh, so now we understand. When your birthday came, you ran away.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too this morning.
Karibu. Siti.
Yeah.
Welcome, Ken, with the day's proverb.
Yes, Ken, our proverbs for this week comes from a country you know well and from people, many of whom are your friends.
Okay.
Wow.
It's from the Federal Republic of Somalia.
Okay.
One does not tell a man, go away, but shows one something he should do.
Okay.
You're supposed
Your
to tell me what you
interpretation.
think of the proverb, bro.
I know what I'm supposed to say,
Yes.
but I'm still digesting it. So one does not tell a man, go away.
No, he doesn't. But,
doesn't.
But
Okay.
he shows them something he should do.
Okay. I think you need to know when to stop as a man, but you still need direction from some other people, especially on things that you don't know you should be doing, but someone can tell you what to do. That's my interpretation. There are things that automatically it's time to stop.
Does anybody understand what Ken has just said? Okay, what has he said?
That's not Gujarati.
So sometimes you have to know when to stop.
And when you're a man, especially, you
And
must know
especially
when to
a
stop.
man when you stop.
Do you understand that manly explanation?
Sure.
What does Ken say?
It's always time to stop.
Useless people.
Did you hear that?
But Ken, you've explained it well.
I tried.
This is the sort of fellow who, when he was a student, he was asked, can you please tell us what a conductor is and describe it? He says, yes, teacher, I can tell you. A conductor is something which conducts something else.
Not even funny. It's not even funny.
But is it not true?
It's true, isn't it?
It's not even funny.
That is a good one.
This is the same thing to explain the same thing.
That's true, man. Ken Karibu.
Asante.
So, Jimmy, as we were going to the top of the hour, we were talking about then what is it? You said we are at that moment where, as a country, we and the Gen Zs have shown us that it's doable. And they have actually shown that they are understanding that there's pain. And they're deciding to take action on the pain. And the action to be taken is basically to liberate the people, so to speak.
Absolutely. You see, Eric, as I said earlier, when we were talking about revolution before Gen Z, people thought we were talking in the air. Kenyans, no. Kenyans will never come out. Kenyans will never do this. They were underestimating the pain. I want to tell you, this pain is just going to increase. It is not going to stop. They cannot stop it. This regime, which in our circles we call a fraud-based government, cannot stop what is coming. And when I say fraud-based, it has generally been a fraud-based government since the colonial era. Now, there's something that I believe Kenyans should be monitoring. When we came here, we used to talk about the Constitution. And Chapter 12 of the Constitution is on public finance management. Very critical. That good book of ours. And there was a challenge that was done by Okoh Mtata last year on the Finance Bill 2023. I can say here I helped in that exercise. You saw the Court of Appeal recently stated that the Finance Act of 2023 is null and void because it is unconstitutional. Because of one chapter in one article in chapter 12. That article is 220, which defines what the budget is. The budget is two things: revenue estimates and expenditure estimates. And it said the last budget did not have, and the last budget appropriation bill did not have revenue estimates. It was a long journey, up and down, but the Court of Appeal was very clear. The Supreme Court had put a stay on that decision, and tomorrow they are adjudicating that issue for the next 2 days. I want to say categorically here, Eric, they cannot rule against the Constitution of Kenya. So it is a foregone conclusion what they are going to rule. Because the revenue estimates were not in the budget, so you cannot anchor a finance bill on revenue raising measures. You did not say what your revenue estimates were, right? As per the Constitution. But it also means something else. It means without it, you do not have a budget. It's important to understand. 220 defines a budget. Without it, you do not have a budget. Without a budget, you also cannot raise tax. What they did in 2023, they've done in 2024. And where they may have anticipated that by the time there's a ruling on the 2023 finance bill, 2024 would have gone, Gen Z kicked out the 2024 finance bill. So we are back to 2023. And that is going to be kicked out. The Supreme Court has no choice. If you read Article 2 of the same Constitution, subsection 4, it literally says this: any act, any law, any activity that is contrary to this Constitution is null and void.
It doesn't stop other things that have been happening in the past, Jimmy. And if we're just looking at...
they can't stop it.
Well, I think...
How does the Supreme Court...
been able to get by with ignoring fundamental parts of the Constitution.
Like what?
Well, absolutely.
Like what?
Well, if you want to look at, for example, safeguarding livelihoods for Kenyans, maybe you would say that it is not... it is vague or
that is vague and ambiguous.
All right.
This one is black and white.
Okay, well, let's look at things like, for example, where Parliament ought to do certain things.
No, it's black and white. No, give me a black and white example.
Parliament ought to do certain things. For
like
example, what? Maintain the 2/3 gender principle.
That there's a decision on.
Is there?
Yes, an opinion was done.
Okay,
yes.
So
but the decision opinion was done in the previous Parliament.
In the previous Parliament.
They need to activate.
There's schedules. There's schedules
they
which have
need
not
to
been
activate
enacted.
An opinion on this.
There are schedules that have not been activated.
Those are schedules.
This current Constitution,
those are schedules.
Which have to be implemented, which have not been implemented.
Those are schedules.
Where I'm going with this is, how will you guarantee that a constitution actually will be followed, where things like by the same courts that you speak of, which is one thing that you've complained about in the past, where court orders are blatantly ignored, where, and that's another thing that's vested in the Constitution, that the courts, the Supreme Court, for example, is one that ought to be obeyed and adhered to.
Okay.
How do you say that you will be able to go into a government where things like that are blatantly ignored, where you do not have the right, again, we go back to disappearance, which you've been clamoring for in the last few days, whereby people have the right to not be disappeared so blatantly, or in the full glare of the public, right? And so here we are saying that there is a need for a different kind of governance to overtake in Kenya.
So I want to give you the input.
How? And
I'll
think
give you the input
the
of
how.
this. Yes, the how is this. That this provision that has been broken in the Constitution means they cannot collect taxation. It means they cannot take debt. Those are instruments not in their control, in ours. Because if the law says they have not followed the law, how does KRA come and collect tax from me? I'll refuse. I'll tell them to get out of my premises. If you see CBK pretending that they can issue a bond requisition or a bill requisition to borrow, they are breaking the same law, and we can sue CBK directly, and they will have problems, and they will not be able to do it. But even aside from that, banks, people are the ones to do it. You're telling them you're putting money into an illegality pronounced in courts. They will not do it because they are risking their own money. How does a government function?
Jimmy.
This is something in our hands. It is not in their hands. Those things you're talking about are in that fraud-based government's hands.
It's the realization that it's actually...
So hold on.
People.
So if it tells you, for example, today, right? When that ruling comes out for sure, it is going to say, for example, that we go to the revenue-raising measures of 2022. Just to give you a simple example.
Yeah.
One of those is VAT on petroleum products.
8%.
So we go from 16 to 8%.
Yeah.
Why would you pay 16? Who's going to keep 16? How long will you keep it?
Well,
You will not pay.
so here's the reality.
So what you're going to
People
get...
paid
No. Just hold on.
until the Supreme
Once there
Court
is a ruling,
stayed.
once there is a ruling, no, they can say it was still...
Until the Supreme Court stayed that
Eric.
decision of the Court of Appeal, people paid
Eric,
16%.
are you trying to... They can say they were still in court, and they had tried to apply for the stay. So until then, they were not going to change their direction. Even now, many of us questioned how the Supreme Court has capacity to stay the Constitution. But we say, fine, let them say the Court of Appeal, because they have no capacity to stay the Constitution of Kenya. But maybe they are staying a ruling of the Court of Appeal. But the eventuality is that you must obey the Constitution. Now, if the government keeps 16%, you are calling for civil disobedience. I will not pay at the pump. Many people will not pay at the pump. They will say, on what basis is it collecting? You are talking about upheavals here you cannot control. They are not the monopoly of anarchy. They cannot shove that in our faces. So please, Eric, do not underestimate the capacity of an enlightened public. And we are enlightened. Kenyans are very enlightened. And you're going to see this government come to a screeching halt because they did not obey the constitution of this country. All right? They are already, as we are talking today, even without all that, CT, before you go on, even without all that, let me tell you, there are some facts here you cannot ignore. We are currently in a structural adjustment program brought by the IMF that does only one thing, cause us severe pain. It is taxation, it is austerity, it is no growth, no subsidy, no support systems. 2, we're in a situation of debt distress. 72% of everything we produce in this country is going to debt. Almost now, I believe 80% of our taxation is going to that one item called debt. You cannot provide the most simple of services to Mwananchi, and it's causing mayhem. Salaries, to healthcare, to education are collapsing. And 3, you have a government that is in political and economic ICU.
Do you think
it is so easy to pull the rug under their feet?
Of course, but then why don't we see that happening? Jimmy, I can understand, and even as you paint the picture, and we talk about.
What do you mean? Why don't you see it happening?
And what we see happening, if we talk about the protests that happened come June 25th.
Have you ever seen anything like that in this country?
Of course, there hasn't.
Hold on, Jimmy. Hold on.
But even as we see that happening, right? In order for us to understand that there is a full-on fatigue, that there's a full-on complete dissatisfaction with what is happening, we probably would not have seen a lull or a break in transmission as concerns the protests.
You know, I don't know what you're talking about.
This is the question, that are people, number one, fully abreast of the situation when we talk about how bad it is?
I don't think you understood what happened.
I have been
active in terms of awareness of our politics since multipartyism.
We speak about the protests as if there's something in history.
No,
we
hold on.
speak about it as
I
though
have never
June
seen,
25th
just
came
hold
and
on.
went.
I have never seen Kenyans running for bullets. I've never seen. They run away from them. This time I saw them running for bullets. And you say Kenyans are not committed. They ran towards the bullets. I've never seen this ever here in this republic. And I don't think anybody ever has. And you think it's over. What are you talking about?
There's a question
The 25th of June.
I want to...
Just hold on. The 25th of June. I want you to record it here. Was the end of this regime. And you are going to see a systematic failure that is not only going to lead to Gen Z, even you'll be out on the streets,
Jimmy,
if that's what it's going to take.
Please hear my question so that perhaps you can...
It is not over.
Hear my question. You talked about the fact that there needs to be an understanding that, number one, the Constitution has been abrogated. Number two, is there a realization that you've basically mortgaged the country to the point whereby everything you get, to the tune of 72%, is going to pay debt for which Kenyans don't even know what it was for.
Correct.
Right? Have we seen that people are so frustrated to the point whereby there will be no letting go of this thing?
What happens?
Because it's like a baby. It doesn't matter what you do. Or when it's pregnant, when that baby is coming, it's coming. There is nothing you will do to stop it.
And that is where
because
we are.
It has come to the place whereby we are here. You can talk. The doctor can say, "Wait, I'm not ready." The woman herself can say, "Wait, I'm not ready." It's coming. It's coming. Is Kenya at that point whereby you say people are so frustrated with the system? People understand that their livelihoods are being stolen. Taking the food they're chewing is being removed from their throats. Basically, have people gotten to that point where they say, "You know what? It doesn't matter what we're going to have to do. We're getting the country back." That's my question.
Do people gave up their lives? But I want to maybe give you a perspective in terms of other revolutions. We have had what I call the first phase of revolution. And you saw things we have never seen in this country. And normally, if you look at regimes that face this sort of revolution, when things reach a stage of a lull, the first thing they do, and they're advised even by their benefactors, because I'm sure the Americans were very quick to advise William Ruto, create a broad-based government. Bring unity to the country. Bring all the players into the same ship, right? And appease the masses. This is an approach used everywhere. But it doesn't solve the problem. And because it doesn't solve the problem becomes compounded, increases, and the next wave is unstoppable. I am saying that the economic problem, and especially exacerbated by debt, which is fake debt bonoko, all right, is going to chew up these people. They can't even be saved. There's no amount of money that can save these people from their so-called Western partners. This thing is going to eat you and me and everybody to the extent that we will not wait those 3 years you're imagining to an election.
Okay.
This is what is going to happen here. Itakula sisi, sawa sawa. Even Ken with his nice suit here, utaona and you're leading to go for those bullets.
Okay.
Okay. This is the extent. And I'm very clear,
Yeah.
My advice even to one William Samoei Ruto. Saa ingine, it's good to be man enough to accept.
Okay, I have a practical question. Do you see people, for example, Eric goes to the pump and he says, you know what, fuel is supposed to be 8%, it's not supposed to be 16%. And he says, oh, well, to the doggies, I'm not going to buy this fuel.
Who is selling that fuel?
Hang on. Do you see that actually?
No, but who is selling that fuel? Who is selling? Government does not sell the fuel.
Whoever is selling
No, hold on. Government,
Okay.
Listen, let's be practical. No. Hold on. Government does not sell that fuel. So it's a company. A company will obey the law. And even if it has not been gazetted by EPRA, they will say, by the way, this is the court order. It says 8%. Right? How long? And they'll be advised by even the auditors that I'm sorry, if you are not obeying the law, then you're going to be hit with a clash action suit that may ground it to a halt. And they will obey the law. And KRA can do nothing about it.
Okay.
So I'm saying,
businesses-
you are getting to an extent where now it is in our hands. It's not government.
This is okay.
Right? Where they can ignore
So when
court
you
orders.
say KRA is supposed to go and collect taxes, because in as much as there is, Jimmy, and we can't run away from the reality that there is outrage in the hearts of Kenyans today. There really is. We cannot run away from that. But between the outrage and the action that is going to lead to something being done, there is a long road.
Who is doing it?
My question is this. You gave another example about KRA, for example.
Who is doing it?
You give another example about KRA where they say, you know what? You cannot collect taxes. Businesses that are operating in the city and KRA comes knocking on the door and say, I'm not paying you. Do you see that happening?
You know, I think you're not out here in the market with us.
No,
I think one thing I can
practical.
tell you today, and I can tell you even without all of that, KRA, do you hear of those people who were commissioned and trained, I think 2,000 or 3,000, that were going around shops collecting tax? Do you have them anymore?
They're still there.
No, do you hear of them?
I don't hear of them, but it
they're
doesn't
still
mean they're
there.
not there.
Who told you they are not there? Or there? They are not there. They have literally found hostility on the ground and they have withdrawn most of their activities.
Most.
Most of the activity. Taxation collection or even enforcement of a government is as good as the goodwill of the people. The minute the goodwill goes, you are going to a state of anarchy. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. The government cannot believe and act as though it is a monopoly of anarchy. They are going to spread the same anarchy to each and every one of us. So, I repeat, who is doing the payments? It is not government. I am telling you, if the order, and I believe it will come, says I pay 8% on my fuel, I want to see which petrol station is going to charge me 16.
But
Because my problem...
do people really care even to look at how this money is distributed within the final retail price to know there's 16 or there's 8%? Do Kenyans really care about that?
Yes, they do.
Actually,
It's a big part of cost of living. You know,
they
Ken,
do. But
you're
it's how they-
underestimating,
but it's
you're
how they do it.
underestimating the civic education of Kenyans.
I am not. I'm just asking, when am I going to compare? Because what the government is doing, it's becoming very clever how it hides this 8%. Right? So do people really care when I go to the petrol station to see my reduction? What is this amount of reduction that I must have seen at the pump price, the retail price, to know that it's 16 or it's 8 at that point? What is this? And secondly, what is that trigger? 25th of June, there was a trigger, finance bill. What is this trigger? Because these things are festering. Pole too. So what is this trigger in your mind, Jimmy, that will bring this second wave?
You know, Ken, I was saying before you came that the trigger of the finance bill, even after it was rejected, the demonstrations continued. Because the pain is still there. It is still there. What people were complaining about is more pain. The pain that Finance Bill 2024 was bringing. But the pain was still there and is still here.
Okay.
Right? So, please, that's what you don't underestimate.
Okay.
Now, let me go back. Let me go back.
Retail price.
Let me
Yes.
go back to retail price.
Yeah.
The amount of civic education going on here, today, if you read Twitter or go on TikTok, it is continuous civic education, right? Being broken down even in different languages. I have a young man who approached me to say this debt thing, I have now broken it down to 7 languages on TikTok. And it is so that everyone can understand. You've heard of others who are going around the country with civic education. Others who are talking about Bonoko projects, right? This thing is no joke. We are now counting the pennies. And do not underestimate the intelligence of our people. They are so far ahead of even these leaders. You're going to get the shock of your life. Now, you're talking about trigger. The trigger is this. Not only is the pain not stopping, it is increasing. Because the more you have this situation where a government is catalyzing no growth at all, is in distress, debt distress, that is pain to each and every single one of us. I was on this show talking about debt default. The eventuality of not having the income, even being reduced to 2022 finance raising measures, just that alone. That alone, my friend, will lead it to distress, will lead it to default. And the pain of default is a pain you don't wish on this country. But these guys cannot stop it. And at that point, I can tell you, you're going to ask, what are we defaulting on? What is this debt, which I don't understand? But now I'm being told my assets I must give my assets to support something I do not know ever came to me. And at that point, you're going to say no. That will be probably the biggest trigger. Okay. The biggest trigger. All right? Because as long as you do not have the taxation, the income, to deal with this ever-growing thing called debt, you're done.
The question that you raised about the pump, if you read and if you even look at KRA's records for revenue collection through the fuel levy, it has dipped. So it was intended, the 16% was intended to raise revenue. It has achieved the complete opposite.
Laffer curve.
Yes. So it means that even the money the government was hoping to get, it now will not get.
Now you imagine now when it goes further down, I can assure you, because people have gotten used to not having, maybe not using their vehicles. Industry, because of recession, has slowed down.
Yes.
I can assure you that income will dip beyond your imagination. But not only that, fuel is but one aspect. It means eTIMS does not exist.
Yep.
All right.
There is an
It
indication
means so
today,
many things
Jimmy,
will
today,
not be there.
Our guest is Jimi Wanjigi. Our guest host for this hour is Ken Mijungu. We are talking about the economy and what's happening in the country. And Jimmy is doing his usual thing. He's predicting.
he's a prophet. Prophet Jimmy.
Ken Mijungu is our guest host. Ken?
I know City wanted to ask you a question, but even as Jimmy predicts doom for this government, there's a lot of hope, especially in the broad-based government. I know you have a name for it, but the broad-based government bringing the ODM people to government seemingly brought a lot of hope. There are people who say it's a lull before the storm, but I think the ODM people in government right now, if you look at the way they're speaking, they tend to have taken a different trajectory altogether. They seem to be admitting there's a problem, and they seem to know there's a solution. However, they're asking for more time, which you couldn't give President Ruto.
Now, Ken, I'll be very clear to you. As you know, a lot of my debate has been about public finance management. I was on Citizen a few weeks ago, where John Bundy is also a friend of mine.
The current CS?
The current CS is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I said, I hope he does not make the mistake of his predecessors. I hope he is very careful with whatever he signs that his officers in Treasury give him. I hope he does not break the law. And I said the indication will be the Gazette notice that comes out every single month on the estimates of revenue and expenditure. All right? He was about to sign his first one, and he did. All right?
He was about, and he did.
And he did. And I said, be very careful what you sign. And he signed that Gazette notice. And I put the question to him today. You signed, John Bundy, that you are going to borrow 978 billion domestic borrowing. 978 billion. That is 1 trillion shillings domestically. You signed that you're going to borrow 593 billion external loans and grants. You have signed borrowings to the tune of 1.6 trillion shillings this financial year. When your president is busy telling Kenyans a lie that there's no more borrowings, he's going to collect money from tax. I ask John Bandi the following question. Where are these borrowings in the budget?
Which budget?
The budget that was passed. Whether you want to call it the appropriations bill, that is the budget. Where are these borrowings? Approved by Parliament. Parliament approved. Borrowings, external loans and grants of 276 billion only. There's no domestic borrowing it has approved. Parliament approved development projects, even in this supplementary so-called budget that they brought, of 476 billion shillings. All borrowings must go towards development. Where is this extra money going to? The law says you can only borrow for development. Which borrowing is this for? You have signed an illegal gazette notice. You have now become the owner of ODS debt. One day, John Bandi, you will ask yourself, when you are before a court of law, what the hell did I do?
Did he have a choice?
Yes.
What was the choice? He's the Treasury Cabinet Secretary.
As I said, I warned him before. Are you looking at the bottom line? Are you asking questions of your Treasury officials? Are you following the law? The law is clear. You cannot borrow what is not on the budget. Where are these borrowings on the budget? They don't exist. You have put your hand to a Ponzi scheme that is our chain and our slavery. This so-called broad-based government has officially become a fraud-based government. Do you understand, Ken? They are perpetuating a fraud on 54 million Kenyans. There's no change. It's the same thing.
By the way, these trillion shillings that's borrowed domestically, who's lending the government $1 trillion, Bob?
These banks. These banks. It's our money.
And the interest is
and they
above
yes.
16%.
You see, even before we go to interest at 16% to 18%, it's just a Ponzi scheme. None of these banks can tell you what their money funds, because it must fund Chapter 12. The law says you can only borrow for development. You can only borrow what is on the budget. These monies that don't exist in the budget. Remember, there's no revenue estimates that are tabulated anywhere. The revenue estimates tell you where government is going to get its income. And if there's a deficit, it is also anchored there. All right? Okay? They never want to show you that why. Because it must correspond with expenditure. And if they're borrowing, it must correspond with expenditure development. But because they're not borrowing for that purpose, they don't put it. That is why they're in trouble with the Court of Appeal. That's why they are going to be in trouble with the Supreme Court. Because there's been debt bonoko here.
So money is going
fake
to
things here. And John Bandi has just signed. He's now taken ownership of this fraud. And I want him. You have to be very careful.
Jimmy, do ask a question and it becomes relevant now. When you have a situation in Nakuru County where goons who are being shepherded by the chief of police of that region are removing patients from hospital. The court summons him, he does not come. The court summons him again, he does not come. Then, small fry, that's Nakuru County. We come to the national level. Big boss Mwenyewe. How many times? Was it 5? Yeah.
Maybe he'll come today.
Yes, maybe he'll come today. We seem to have a culture where, and it began in the Uhuru era, where court orders, as far as certain individuals are concerned, exist to be disobeyed. Now, Supreme Court says, okay, guys, this can't happen. I mean, this is a question who was asking, what guarantee do we have?
You
Is
see,
that it
but
will not be disobeyed?
Who are the implementers? In those cases, the police are the ones implementing, and they decide they want to be an anarchy arm of the government. I am also a victim of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this case, who pays tax? You and I.
We all do.
And we can refuse because it's not lawful. So they can't do anything to us. Right now, if you don't pay tax, the taxman can come and give you a notice. Even seize your money in your bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Correct? When it's not lawful, he can't.
He doesn't have the basis.
He doesn't have the basis. Power is within you.
Well, but
Those who are loaning will know. I am loaning unlawfully. It will never come back to me. So why loan?
Meaning
These are within.
If the government defaults, there's nothing the banks can do.
Nothing.
There is no law that will support.
No, forget about default. I'm even not going there. I'm saying if the government, for example, is stopped from doing domestic borrowing,
Yes.
this 1 trillion shillings, it can't survive. It cannot pay the Ponzi scheme it has created. What do you think will happen? It will default. Are you going to say that they are going to insist that banks give them that money?
yes,
On what basis?
Because
on no basis, Jimmy.
No, but if the law is not there, no, hold on, Eric. The law is not there. So how is it enforced?
Impunity.
No, how is it enforced?
Impunity.
It's my money in my account.
Impunity.
How do you force me? No, please.
There
How
was
do
no order that required police to come at your gate. Were they there? Were they
no,
not?
but they were the ones implementing.
Exactly.
And they decided to
Impunity.
forget about it. No, hold on.
Impunity.
That's what I'm trying to explain, Eric. That just like taxation, that is the same thing. It's my money in my account. Why would I loan you and I'll never get it back because it's against the law? I'll hold it. Right?
I'll give
Why
you
would I
examples.
pay tax and you can never enforce the payment of that tax?
I will give you
because
examples.
you can never do anything to me.
Yeah.
It's within my preserve. You as government cannot do anything.
That's true.
Yes,
Very good.
That's the
theory.
point. Now,
Very-
when you are
very
talking
good
about coming
very
to
good
my
theory.
house,
Hold on.
they were the ones implementing.
And the government implements all the time.
No.
I want to give you examples. In taxation, who collects the tax? It's government, right?
Kerry.
Yes, it's government.
Yes.
Who pays the tax?
How do
It's
they
you and
collect
I.
it? But how do they collect it?
In various ways.
How?
One of them is, for example, housing levy. Okay? Omtata goes to court. Housing levy is declared. This one is illegal. All right?
Find a way around it.
No. Even before finding a way around it, housing levy is collected for months.
No.
Hold on. It had been collected for months.
They stopped.
Yes, but it had been collected.
No, but they stopped.
But it had been
The
collected.
eventuality, that's what I'm trying to
3
say.
billion.
No,
Hold on,
I'm
Jimmy.
glad you brought that as an example.
Jimmy, let me finish. 3 billion or thereabouts had been collected. Was it 3? Was it 30?
No, it was more than 3.
It was
Yeah.
20, the one that
Right.
was
It was
by the
more,
bond.
yeah.
Had been collected. The next thing was, now refund or find ways. Has it been refunded or found ways? Hold on.
Yes.
The Court of Appeal says Finance Act 2023 is illegal. Okay? The following day is the 14th of the month. What does EPRA do?
It's thing.
It comes up with its thing. And what does its thing contain? 16% VAT on fuel. Up until the day that the Supreme Court said, halt the implementation of what the Court of Appeal had said, what happened at the pump? Prices were based on 16%. Impunity, Jimmy.
Eric.
You're asking on what basis? Basis is good theory.
No.
In practice,
Eric.
impunity
Eric.
will make
Eric,
it
Eric, you are
happen.
distorting facts.
To-
The facts.
Before you respond,
Yes.
to add on that, the reason why the banks will still give government money. They're the biggest trading partners to the government. That's why our
Whose money is it?
Our interests
Whose money
are
is
high.
it?
It doesn't matter, but the biggest trading partners of the government. So they will definitely look at where the bread is buttered.
Okay.
This is the government that gives the most business.
I will
do
be very clear here.
Yes.
First, Eric, before I come to you. Eric, housing levy was stopped.
Yes.
And the eventuality is the government had to stop it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But even before the government stopped it, you had advisories across the board from accountant firms, from employers federation, from unions. That money is not to be deducted.
Yes.
And it stopped. Even before the government acted. So it stopped. Because that deduction is done by private people. Your employer deducts it. A union can complain. All right? The government is not the implementer.
Jimmy.
And even before they removed it, it was cut. So I'm trying to be practical. You asked us. Let me finish. I allowed you to finish.
You said I'm distorting.
Eric,
correct the facts.
That's the fact. I'm trying to correct that you are saying the practice and the theory are two different things. The practice was there. Even before the government withdrew it, the Employers Federation stopped them.
Okay.
Unions stopped them. Let me finish, Eric. Let me finish. I allowed you to finish. Was there
an employee who was deducted housing levy during all this time?
No, please. I have answered your question.
You haven't.
It was stopped. And it was withdrawn from payroll slips. They then had to come back with another thing called housing fund. Mm-hmm. Okay? And until then, it started again.
So let me
Eric, I've allowed you to talk.
Let me correct you. There were deductions for the housing levy. Okay? There may have been private employers who did not remit, but there were deductions for the housing levy. Before the court came and put a halt onto it, there were deductions.
You're not listening to me.
Was the money returned?
No, you're not listening to me.
Point.
No, you're not listening to me. You are saying the government continued deducting and people continued deducting. When the court order came, that deduction was stopped by employers, right?
By everybody.
And by unions.
Yes.
That is the practice. The court stopped it. The government, right, had no avenue to collect it. That's the practice.
And they had collected
26.8
billion.
Yes, I can tell you that further to that, there was a court order that said, because it was attempted about withdrawal, about returning the money, that the government is not duty bound to return it.
Yes.
Okay? Again, the court. So the practice is clear that it was stopped and it was implemented. Ken has raised something about banks. Banks loan to get profit for their shareholders. If that loan is proved illegal, they are now in the realm of fraud, securities fraud. That is where they go. And the cost for them is phenomenal. It's not their money, it is our money in their accounts. It is not theirs. You will not take my money to a fraudulent activity. So please, that's what I'm saying, that here we have the strength. It is not government to implement. It is the law that we will obey. We will obey it and we have the strength to implement it. It's within our purview. If the commissioner or the IG of police wants to disobey court orders, hiyo ni yake. Eventually, if he's going to take you to court, it will be struck off because he disobeyed orders. So the intention was never to take you to court. It was some other purpose. Right? So at the end of the day, even his activities of anarchy come to an end. But here, we have the strength, the capacity to say we are not going to do it.
Jimmy, we do.
And we will do it because we will be backed by law.
Yes, we are. But what we are saying is our lived experience. This really is the point that
No. This is a different thing.
No. It is not a different thing, Jimmy. The point is, everything you say makes sense. Everything you say can even be supported by law. Everything you say can be supported by the Constitution. Then I pause, then I say, our lived experience. See, when you have people who are in political power and positions and they are hell-bent on doing exactly what they want, not what the law says, that seems to be
so
our
tell me,
lived problem.
So tell me, CT,
Yes.
how do they make me pay tax that is not lawful?
For instance, what you say about the pump, I would like to see if the petrol stations will reduce that cost.
They have no choice, because then they're anticipating, just like the employer on the housing levy, they are going to be anticipating a direct hit to them, not to KRA. Because you hold them accountable, not KRA.
I understand.
So the basis here, please go slow. This is not the normal thing. And I'm glad Eric brought up the housing levy. The court stopped it. It is the Employers' Federation, it is unions, that said you cannot deduct anymore. And that deduction was removed. Long before the government pronounced itself, it kept saying, oh, we are changing. The court said we are changing, we adjust this thing. It pronounced itself. It's the same thing here. Because who are the implementers? It's not the government. Once something is not lawful, it's a game changer.
It's a game changer.
That's the thing you're not.
I haven't understood. That's what I'm waiting to see. Because we are talking about businesses that want profit.
But if I don't have, listen, if I'm not duty bound to pay a tax, why would I pay it? Who is going to enforce
So
that
you're
paying
looking
of
at
tax?
it from the company perspective before it gets to the end user.
Who wants to pay tax? Now you're being told, I mean, I don't know what you guys are saying. And you're being told now you don't have to pay. And then you say,
No, I'm still paying.
I'm still paying.
regardless.
Give me a break.
yeah.
Come on.
So you're looking at it from the company base, not the retail.
Who is
Okay.
going to pay?
Okay.
You're going to say this thing is not lawful. Why are you deducting it?
Why am I adding
It's not lawful.
Jimmy, you've changed the argument.
No, but that's what happens. That's what happens. That's what happens.
The practical-
Why do you take on a cost
The
to your
practical side
income?
of it.
Actually,
And the law is saying that you don't have to.
it's sound because the
practical-
companies will say no.
Yeah.
The practical side of it is that yes, you're going to say no, you're going to hold back, you're going to push back to it, but I'll bring you back. 26 billion shillings was collected for
No, the
housing.
law.
26.8
billion shillings was collected.
Yes.
Oh.
In the time that 26 billion.
No, my friend.
What
The
is-
law.
what
The
is
law.
What
The
is-
law.
So let me finish.
Eventually, it stops.
So let me finish. The 26 that was collected, where is it now?
They wanted to do it.
They
T
bought
bills.
bonds.
T
Yeah,
it's
they
bills.
bought
it's in
bonds.
abeyance.
Yeah.
It's in abeyance.
Because that 26 billion was collected against on an illegal law, so that one is out, and was before the Housing Levy Fund Act, the regulations.
So they've eaten
Affordable
it.
housing, yeah.
So where is the 26
So you're
billion?
saying it has been eaten?
That's the point I'm trying to tell you, Jimmy. That you can come up with all these theories and law, but 26 imenda.
No, Eric.
Wake up.
You must appreciate how far we have come.
Very
Do
far.
not be
26 billion
dismissive.
shillings.
No, hold on. Do not be dismissive on a blatant thing like that. I can tell you that. The eventuality of our capacity to abide by the law as citizens has come out. You yourself said we stopped paying the housing levy long before the government pronounced itself. It is within our control. That's what you're not understanding. Taxation payment is within our control. If it does not exist, why will you pay it? You will refuse. In this company alone, you will all start saying, why are you deducting me? It's unlawful. You will not sue KRA, you will sue the company. It doesn't exist. If you are giving a loan, why would I give and it's unlawful? No bank will do it. They are risking their own reputations and their own demise, because we who have deposited in those banks will ask them what the hell they were doing. So please, do not compare the malfeasance of 26 billion that they've so-called taken before people understood what the law is. As no growth. We have grown, and it is within our power. And I'm trying to tell you that this government, even in this budget that Bandi is so-called trying to implement, is an unlawful budget. It's an unconstitutional budget.
Yet the banks
And
are
it will
lending
come. No.
Yes.
But you see,
Top of the hour,
they are
Jimmy.
being educated. They are being educated.
They have lawyers. If these banks don't have lawyers,
No, we are. Let me tell you.
let's end it then.
They are slowly being educated. And if they are refusing to listen, then you know they are participants to the fraud. And it will eventually catch up with them.
On that, I agree.
It will eventually.
That I agree.
They eventually bid.
They eventually bid. That I agree.
Yes.
But for now, they're still lending to the government,
Yeah.
knowing it's not in the budget.
I'm glad you're saying that.
But
I'm glad you're saying that because you're telling them.
thank you very
I'm
much,
so
Jimmy, for
glad.
joining us. And Ken, good to have you here again.
Asante sana.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.